Thanks, man.
So let's move on to you talk about business and business incentives to provide incentives for small businesses to be able to flourish.
Yes.
So is there a reason why it's small, maybe even medium-sized businesses you want to target?
Oh, absolutely. Because when you look at a small business, those small business owners are the folks that live in your community. Those are the people that you're going to see at the grocery store on Sunday or at church. So it's important to me to want to have a way to incentivize that small business community to want to create opportunities. For one of the things I talk about the most is the small business tax incentive to incentivize the small business community to hire prior felons, so that you can reduce recidivism rates, to get some folks back to work. And to me, it is a way to have a person who's had some mistakes in his or her life find a way to integrate back into society and become a productive member of their community again. That is an important thing. But we can't, I don't expect a business, a for-profit business, to do something that's altruistic. They have a profit motive. So I'm looking at a way to combine that profit motive with my desire to want to create opportunity, especially for those who aren't going to get a fair shake now that they've served their debt to society. They want to move forward and do the right thing. But if you look at this just from a moral perspective, I mean, if you can find ways to help a family, right? Think about a child who hasn't seen their parent for a number of years because they've been incarcerated. Now they've come back, and if that parent is always going to be down on their luck, they're going to start engaging in crimes of survival. They're going to find a way to eat. They're going to find a way to put clothes on their back. And if we can't mitigate that difference, I mean, we're never going to solve the problem. And if you can, though, get some folks back to work, those children are going to look up to their parent now that their father or their mom are doing some good things for themselves and feeling more involved, and their self-esteem is back. That is a overwhelming sense of what it means to have redemption, and I think that is important.
So you touched on self-esteem. That this is one of the issues that I really have a stick to beat a dead horse with. Is not just here in America, but unfortunately also in Europe, where I'm from. There is a tendency within the bureaucracies of the governments to strip people of dignity. We can't give you welfare so that you can make it until your next job without having you pee in a cup, and you have to work for a pittance 5 hours away from your home, and if you don't, then you get no more. And oh, your son, he was involved in criminal activity, you can now no longer be in federal housing. You're all a bit like, it seems like stripping people of dignity is a thing we just do without thinking about it anymore. So to give a former felon, or to give a person who's just down on his luck, the ability to straighten the back. Now, work is one way to do that. Are there other ways that you see that we can do that?
I'm sure there have to be, but I think when you look at this proposal, though, and I do believe you're right. I think, by and large, we have a group of people who are in control of our segments of our government, at least, who are in some ways hell-bent on trying to demoralize a segment of our population, and they have done a phenomenal job of doing that. But as long as that cycle continues, as long as we allow those folks to remain in power, we aren't going to be able to stop that kind of process from occurring. When you make people feel that they're less than, that it is okay to cast them aside, how can you be shocked when you have the kind of crime rates and gun homicide rates that we have? How can you, why is this now all of a sudden like, oh my God, we have all this crime? But look at the way we treat people, right? Look at the way we in a lot of ways demonize folks. That is just simply not okay. But until we move past that, or at least get the people out of the positions of power to do those kinds of things, it's going to continue. But this is why, this issue with this tax incentive to hire prior felons is so important to me, because we can mitigate that difference and put some folks back to work and try to to help those communities rebuild together, rebuild some families, and really do some good things with it.
Okay, so let's say you get your tax incentive passed through. Now there are some people crying out for something similar happening for people on welfare. Mm-hmm. Now, how do you prevent that sort of good intention to become the same legislation as the Welfare to Work program?
Mm-hmm. So what I can tell you is that there are, as far as I'm concerned, there have been some smaller local level tax credits that allowed for a company like mine, for example, to hire folks who are disadvantaged in one way or the other, hadn't had a chance to work in a number of months or a year or something like that. You put them back to work, they get a tax incentive, or I would get a tax incentive for doing so. So I know it actually works. I mean, you're not going to have any program that you're gonna find that someone isn't trying to manipulate or abuse it in one way or the other. That's inevitable in everything that happens within human nature. I mean, there you have some folks who are just not, in my mind, they're not quality people in that way. They just want to abuse something, and that's in dealing with this kind of thing. You're going to have to talk to folks to find ways to put as many safeguards in place to prevent that as you can. But I'm not naive to think that that's not going to come up. But and part of what I'm going to do is talk to as many people as I can to try to cover as many bases as possible. But again, it's not going to be foolproof. No law is going to be foolproof. But the more people we can bring to the table and have these kind of conversations, the more good we can provide.
Okay, so what I wanted to hear a bit about was like the Welfare to Work program. Bill Clinton, President Clinton, before he signed the bill, he put in front and center an African-American woman who had a story about how her finding a job made her daughter proud of her. Mm-hmm. And then everyone forgot everything about her, and it then turned out that she later committed suicide because she was now working 2 jobs, and she was depressed, she couldn't afford medication, and she was caught in this Welfare to Work program that she just couldn't get out of, and this happened to more and more people. It's even been characterized by some people as a benign form of indentured servitude. Mm-hmm. So when we put in all of these safeguards to make sure that people don't cheat, we unintended, I'm going to be generous and assume that it's unintended, strip people of their dignity. So my question was, how do we make programs that help people with and balance it against people's fears of abuse, but saying that, but we're not going to go too far?
Sure. So when you look at it this way, in terms of this specific tax credit, it costs about $30,000 a year to incarcerate a person. So any amount less than that is a benefit. I mean, we can help reduce that expense, and then you're going to have a person who's going to be earning. And in my mind, what I want it to be is a family supporting wage. I'm not as far as we're concerned today, I don't have that number of what that wage rate would be. It surely would not be the minimum wage, that's for sure. So to answer the question in regards to is someone going to have to work 2 jobs, the idea of this tax credit isn't so that someone just gets a $725 an hour job. It's so they can get a job that pays them a family supporting wage, where they would work 1 job, right? So that they could help build a career and and really get into a company. I mean, because this next person that gets into this program could be the next big thing, who's got the next great idea. We just needed some help along the way. But in addition to that, we're going to have to make sure that once I do win this seat and I'm able to bring this bill up, that I work with my counterparts so that we can address issues as they come up. But that's part of the problem that we've seen so far in our legislature, especially at the federal level. Something happens on one side, the opposite side doesn't want to do anything to help fix it. That can't keep happening. That stalemate is really, they do that kind of thing. It's like they're playing a game of chess with our lives, right? That's not acceptable. We need to make sure we have people in the positions of power to prevent those kinds of things from happening, so that we can actually make progress, right? That's what we're here for. We want to make things better, make folks' lives better. But while they're playing games over there, people are struggling. And that there's no way you can be an honest person and say that that's acceptable.
Well, I can only agree with that. So, would you support the Fight for 15 movement publicly? Or you equivocated a bit on a number as what the living wage should be, but would you support the Fight for 15?
And here's what I've said about that, and actually I do support that movement. I honestly do. I support the fact that they are fighting for something that they believe in, and who couldn't get behind that, right? That is the, I believe, the essence of how this country came about to where it is now. But beyond that, I think if you look at Washington State, when I believe it's Seattle, where they passed their minimum wage increase, and I believe that is actually beyond 15 from what I remember. What they did is they brought key stakeholders together from the issue, whether it's the advocates, the small business community, civic leaders. They brought them all together and had a conversation. What is the best solution to do this? And they chose an incremental way of achieving that objective. And so I believe it is staged out over or phased in over a couple years that the rate will go up, but they have a plan to get there. That's the method that I support in getting there. I mean, as a president of a small business, I could not absorb a dramatic increase in what the cost for my employees' pay would be. Now, in my case, I don't pay anyone anywhere near the minimum wage, so that kind of thing wouldn't hurt. But when you're talking about increasing the pay of someone, I think if we don't include the people who are involved in that entire process, including the employers, you are risking having it unfoiled just a few years later. So if you look at how, with the Affordable Care Act, people were running in 2012 as saying, hey, I'm running because I oppose the Affordable Care Act, right? And I'm going to go there to dismantle this thing. If we can't include people in this process, that will continue to happen. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to see that happen. So if we are fortunate to increase the minimum wage, and we are able to do so with getting buy-in from the small business, especially the small business community, we have a better chance of having something that is far more substantial than just having us just ram it down someone's throat and it doesn't go anywhere after that.